kaapsiset kakiokiwapatin utiaski notekimiwan kutak ukisigaw akami mo kawititin itos kutsita namoya kosta Towin ita michichi makikwe matuin kaya kustatsi kutak ukisigaw
Onagagimska tepihtam ueswiwengi se ueswatamogomaski ugunuguk agamiwinuak lakragit mahiwak egutohtigit pihtamok pamuisawegutagit taksenet umakkanadagasikati
Gutaman nokum kura kagehetit upapa wahigutayge hayat 1800s manawagitogi itakunatsig aski ko hikumakatapana ipohit patawsa koma pausti ipotis timitsig ipohayagana timson operates kawapas bakapata search na maka ipohano isko ipatagage mahmuna mana itu tak kau gawe udah start sih.
As we look at the concept of history and education, you have to be able to look at the period of colonization that was starting to take place in the late 1700s and also the 1800s.
Kajasli voyagergi pims kawewagmanani hio nunatugi pisep miupmatsiit it pimsutsik iwe swatsutsik iwe swatatoitsini muawa.
From a Cree viewpoint, you have to look at what the traditional educational system involved. There were 3 levels of it. There was the concept of Kiskinwahama, which meant that you were able to learn on your own. There was some self-teaching as you went about through observation, etc. So there was that aspect of education. Then there was a dimension where you learn from an elder, you learn from another adult or child or somebody who knows more than you in a particular situation, and that is called Kiskinwahama.
Tani hiyo wagagi pics na hamoatsik la company goliper ulpics kuiwinwauma tamuhtse marsihitsik muijuhtse tihtamok upics kuiwinwauma tamaskamihtsik tamuniaussihitsik muniawinwak goliper uguk igaskihtatsik tapics kuitsik tayamno igugya patstawak taguiskinatsik ni hewa.
Lastly, on the Cree system, there was an interactive dimension, and it was called Kiskinwahama. That means when people teach each other. And it could mean elders learning from each other, or children learning from each other, or adults learning from each other. It could mean Europeans learning from Crees and Crees learning from Europeans. And in that sense, there was this overall concept of education.
Yksi uumani hiawagagi maamaunihtsik utsinaassagagi usihta tunego eski pagamskoagok ni hiawagoman ayamahaawin piitusumagayaasupmaatsuunwao ugo piikskuiwinwao.
Goto ni pistumana ni goto pudram no goto ayum ni muawich mai ganat sukutaganya ni gattagapadya kasi gol mai gotis man toat Waka kami tapos tawan tan. Kaya sa naista po hiipuamitsikat nuajuhtit mätsit.
Zizu kri ayam hawin, iwaks nahamawan, ki ayam hoog holi perta pahkanip tahko, kagi wipiks nahamuatsa gawassa.
Suumi sinu givikiträät. Dit mui mammo, muitas kutsumu katsuma, mammo on siis spiemiigi maavitaksi, kui ma vassagun näet, kui nii sinua.
So we've had all these settlements being formed vis-a-vis the fur trade, and a lot of people were interconnecting at that time. But we're seeing the first phase, therefore, the strength being from Aboriginal people, and now the strength is shifting to the European base. And so you're seeing that aspect taking place in the educational scene. You're seeing now French and English being taught.
Limission kimatsuhsihtawak 1840 Cumberland House tohtsigape po 1847 Piegelberg kimatsuipin namsaktawa tohtsiguttakla mission Stanley Mission giusihtawak 1850.
Tohtsikoppi iskaki naataatsiklen ma sisters tapi skuli uipin paihtaat uimussahki naatawassa kippamussahki niwawassa mihtiet minä kusik tohtsi konvent kake aatsik.
We're now entering the new treaty time. They hadn't bothered much with the north because of the treaties with agricultural development. They tended to do a lot of their treaties in the south. So they waited, for treaty making in the north.
Instumtanunia nanussaapaski ginuutihtawak niguttaassik uessuumas neheganagagiusihtaatoo muuta Saskatchewan. Kihtsimmas nehiganuma suuskuagi suhkan agomauks nahmaagivin gagisuessuaatsigaattiik agamausku agamaskuhtsimuyaueskiuhtsipagitnam teissuessuaattagawituanihiyo uutuma Canada maaga agunagunusumal guvrama uogaguessuaataatsik uogaigamsteetaguispahigutsik.
It became policy and part of the Indian Act that the children had to go to school and they had to, under pain of going to jail. They were told, go to jail if you don't send your kids to school. Your everyday life was looked upon and decided by agents, But what took place in these schools was another matter.
When you look at the history, the first type of schools were the local schools or the day schools. And while a lot of First Nations people had wanted the day schools, meaning they wanted to be like every other parent anywhere, that they wanted to have their children close by when they went to school.
Sapä skuniganoma stan kadhano musuma ginakskawiu suuniaugamawa tamatspaihtaks nahmaagiugami.
Eksekuaki maamupi ai sinua hegomina Archdeacon Mackay ki tawan John Alexander Mackay kuni ki te pate. Ekaki maamupi ki wi tamo maxtomato te tenigate. Tad me to aga tuna nagai hegemak. Em heino penata tsgawa sai squatas. Den to ite nano ta taksata woda takstomat. Eteves. Ekstava isinogahio uknapiok. Bekantagahitamo. Baga bakaya wito ana moito no mo maskos no kaskita maga se sikitsinta wite na wanto. Ek sato wangi to te. Ek te wite ma wato. How? Kioga te paheno ma stomato. Ki spen mi opaige. Ka kiena ma gon so niao. Etawes.
But as a time for colonization and racism was on the rise, you saw that a lot more of the preference, by government was the boarding school.
Le gouvernement kiwe suatio ohu le mission taksnahamuatsugo ni hio awassak papamiuma igoksegitas nahamogone kihtsemas nahigani.
The churches made deals with the government. They got institutions. They were given the right to create institutions, build buildings, to build churches, build residential schools to educate these children. With the exception that they have the right to to convert and Christianize those people, and those people's children they got into their churches.
March 14, 1879. Davin report kasihkatik residential schools kitse kigisas nahigatio. Higuttagi tuiwak uskawassak tamaskamihtsik ufmite tuhtahihtsik ufmitaimihtsigiitsik samsagaop maatsuan muagiuhtse minuutsiguhtse.
Ayagana asimutsiga yukaya utnaigan mig wapan me pegan etaite tsiga utaisi wapan utagitega kegachago setita ngogan ma wigwam. Igani agana asimutsik wigwam kitamak managagana gachi tipi. Igamana gi masinage tsik misigite ka ega usam egosisi awa sisuma kagisi matsi hitagosisi migawa pigese egosimena tateni tage goni mataiti ega tautna chik ego tauche ega tasupet saha ege goni ma
Hawa sisahpuutige taamagiwigiuhtsimmiao tawiessuattagis pintagituhtiit lekkol.
Tapun papa tato taputan nagatigwa higota tai mesigia skole. Papa stamugitiwa ni ke pego ke we travelings. Ni ganit naniut. Ni ke hana.
Asagi apat tamagagusis tamachutna chikawas. The speak one against the latte one against boarding schools. Asagi apat na upas kiagete Henry Badagote pege usita 1841-42. Asagi machi apat tamagute se atamay na kitaga na miswa. Ute se wapano utagite
Shuli perks nahamagugamgo suskua papami massanagim tagahkastaok igahkuyastaatsugu hutsinaassi. Kiigats mitä tahtossaapigiusihtaok igattua aimistigiugamgo Saskatchewan.
Maagutawa ni boarding school zagati usita chik apsis wana isketi taga nagane kaya stop muteo tansin tasupeo teo tawasis ega kutaga ngeti usi chegate omina industrial schools yaga nasi monani ho. Apitay na way Kiskinwahama tap ansin no. Apitay ni uminatos kete gusis.
In earnestly, it started out with the government, creating at the same time this whole idea of bringing a new idea of to take the fur trade and get these people back into being privy of, as part of the country's development, and the idea of creating industrial schools, where they would train these people to learn how to farm, animal husbandry, using machinery, and learning how to read the 3 R's, reading, writing, and arithmetic, using those basic literary tools, and from there, becoming the labor force.
Julber makalam gemistigi uskaiwit miskano justat.
Team of horses wound up and Diana and my machinery. My shovel and axes. Big trees ogamana, roads and knowledge Kiskinwahama. 9 hours a day. Here to here. Boy, $6 you think a man must negans. No money, huh? Just a little note. He may give tongue at Toscano for that month.
Suunyaagi maagipi wapahtamni hiogaiwi muuniau maatsahut. Iguhtsigagipi maskahtuitsega wassa ipi muuniau pegehaatsik anussiguag wapahtino.
Ogemain ma suogigi mamitrineitam ena egipako atakis yoga gutautsi unigi gata antawasis.
Once the schools opened up, there was no participation on the part of the Aboriginal people. They didn't have no privy to what was going on inside those schools. Once their children were in there, they were sort of, told to stay away.
Gipi wapahtamuk kagi miskutsiptihtsik kisasig suaguistooma kagipi miskuta pahtahkooma maatsiwin.
Så du hel hast sa hel inledes i nästa horis Anderson hast sa kunt o NB hust hono such as it in delo yalt hisum hono kunt o ya downstairs so cross and at because missing tini benasni dann yo the is in horincha so und in nicht chilling is ja so lange so
Muuniawinu agiptaguhtiit kihtse uessuumas nehegan gagimas nahahkuau kiiks kihtamugikuspi iwiwanihtaatse kayaasup maatsuinuau.
Apumana sipet yaga yo wanige inigi si traffic lines mana gitut ya. Ego tene mesak ni Kiskinwahama aga wistonis ki sipet yo. Ende pagona chigwat asko sisi. Ego mana yo gagi sita chigo sisi ke gon. Kapeu ching ba pagata go sing Kiskinwahama guna tak mana go te wino su.
Tati mes ko chiapin egat tati gagis tigat ki chansen ni no. Ego sisi tati sip mit sahak machis when tati mes ko chiapin egat egitit.
Mana go sinis na gita ga migis ya go ta. Ba pa mi saga mig musta sagia ego sisi. Ego yo mana gi mas ko sigi aks.
Kiiks kihtamuk ta paspiitsek pogutap mit sahahkuau muuniop maatsuin.
When you go to learn English, doesn't matter what kind of job, you go to talk English. Truck driving, aircraft, anything like that. Drivers, you go to talk English. You can learn that in Cree.
Tämän tuoski kahki taamigi pihtahkuau niin hiok, tamisku tunahkuau piikskuivin, takajaa siimutsek.
Pego ke maagi, ne hio ke maagi piks pativak. Ego ke vihta maagok. Keni gano ek pokta pemetsan ek tan se pematsot hapskujas ette goges. Pokta me uyek. Stomatun tagoya yai.
1879 johti namok Emmanuel Kiskinwahama kustapinane taksnahamuihtsik.
Kiskinwahama Towin gagi matsihtaan metanam sepitos. Usan poco na peo gate tentane que está yo chique Kiskinwahama acá más que go usan porque todo que eso haga eso. Pero este ni soski que se está de go y chogo na opa chica de texto haga. Ta toga di pengi chogo na nanto.
Mihtsäät ni hio Kiskinwahamaagi ogutag johtiiwak Emmanuel College. Igunik Northern Board ka johtiinahkuau.
Ego speak this tamay Northwest Territories and ikisiga teo mota miswet agagi at Saskatchewan. 1892 ego nistam public board ego sitsiga ate. Ego tesi ay agagi at sahisi siniga so pero tanapeo dosian asimi nakadot. Egani sa board egi tag siya ma Charlie Boss. Nots pumi nagigato siya gota. Usam po Hispanic Kiskinwahama o kaya miyawen. Utsta po tati kiskarita magmi naganasi when tagita sutan sino papito sa gusi si tati Kiskinwahama agat era gusi si mira kagistigani ok.
Tamis kutsimamtu nihtahkuau pihtsik Kiskinwahamaagivin kagi siktapahtahuau suuniaugimaawak.
People brought out the stories of what took place in those places. You know, the terrible agony that these children went through. There's some that even never came out of there. Some have died there. Many died there. And even some were probably murdered there.
Ako chimana mistake mamitre itamigo kansinia not sketch what the Kiskinwahama tansin no minote taisit out taut ni chego gawasa kiteo. Mistake mona mitne nagachisia monia nag mona mitne nagachisia kayo makapegi we chike gusisi kawi Kiskinwahama o mata tawaniga chike gache gusisi de machi chike gusisi ke wanta tuta i mona nagachisia na puanita o ya mistai mana kise papi kiskotta maka gusisi ansinnia.
Kiiksugutsehigoq masnehigan igipimasnehigaattiik niananumtano niananussa boardings igonistanu nisussaap industrial schools massanak Canada gestiig.
Naantawettige speakanima kapanita chego industrial schools ega boarding schools speakanima tapegi siniga so Dr. Bryce kita Ego si tat ego speak 1907. Ego egi teta ni ma tato neo awasak ani mego si kagi si Kiskinwahama ati tato neo eno egi sa suka ne mago itse gawa se no miste egi panik me na ego speak ay egi sweet itse ni mago si tato neo kagi no pat tama nego si awa se at pek ego tauchi kinagatas.
Monda wista kimsnan. Tagiagita. Sleeping is sick itura. Igias kititigan. Yung pitsik janin gawa sa utatagan pa ako mabisag. Bedroom sigitas tiyan. Bed. Yung pitsik janin awas. Umuwi tamago ya. Itmin pitsik. Peace. 25 years siya. Anto tuwinyanan po gitmat siya.
Igu tegitas ne higati, igu ahksuin, igun puin, igipmit sa higati igu ho residential school.
When he said it was a national crime, it was indeed a national crime. And in that sense, you saw the first huge debate on the residential school era. And it took quite a bit of time. They tried to hide the report. As a matter of fact, Duncan Campbell Scott was around at that time on Indian Affairs. And guess what happened to Dr. Bryce? He only lasted under a couple of years and he got moved out of there by Duncan Campbell Scott. And it was in that light that you saw, the resistance internally within the federal government. That the report that they had with the denominational system, of schooling was still to be upheld. The respect for the culture, history, and language of Indigenous peoples in Canada and in Saskatchewan is not there yet.